Can you start with the basics of what
hmm
is a single member LLC to set the stage?
Sure. So, a single member LLC, two parts of that to think about. Uh, let's start with the LLC. So, a limited liability company or LLC is just a type of entity under state law. So, if when you form an entity, a business, a nonprofit, whatever it is, you've got various choices. You've got corporations, nonprofit corporations, etc. LLC is one of those choices, and it has certain characteristics of being limited liability, having fewer formalities than a corporation, but all that comes under state law. And then the single member part just means that it is an LLC with only one owner. So in an LLC, a owner is called a member, and with a single member LLC, you've got an LLC with one owner. And in the nonprofit context, that would be uh, that owner would be the nonprofit organization itself. So it would be the 100% owner of this LLC that they're forming. Now, uh, there are different ways that nonprofits can use LLCs. They can be done for joint ventures. Two or more organizations can get together and operate an LLC. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about single member LLCs with that one organization as the owner. And it's important to think about some of the tax characteristics and tax consequences of this because it's very important in this setting. A single member LLC, where a nonprofit tax exempt organization is the owner, is by default treated as what we call a disregarded entity for tax purposes. Meaning, if the single member LLC with a tax exempt nonprofit owner as 100% owner, any revenue, expenses that flow through the LLC, those just get combined and they flow right through to the owner and all get reported out on the nonprofit's Form 990. So there's no separate revenue and expenses for the LLC. All of that gets bundled together. And before I turn it back to you, Mike, there are, just to be complete, there is a possibility an LLC, it's a flexible entity structure. There is a possibility of electing a different type of treatment. So rather than being a disregarded entity, being taxed as an entity separate from the parent nonprofit organization, 99% of the time, that's not going to be what a nonprofit wants to do. It has some narrow applications in the UBIT context that we won't talk about today, but almost all the time, for what I'm talking about, you're going to want it to be treated as a disregarded entity and consolidated on the 990, and then not needing to do any kind of Form 1023 application for the LLC. It will just inherit the tax attributes of the parent owner organization.
Perfect. Ben, can you this is a lot of information, but can you go
Mm-hmm.
over the why a little more specifically, what how nonprofits from a purpose perspective, what have you seen? Could you
Yeah.
do that for us?
Yeah. So, stepping back, if we've got that disregarded entity status, um, meaning it doesn't create something that's different from a tax perspective, and if people make a contribution to the single member LLC, if you do it right, they should be able to deduct that the same way they would a contribution to the parent organization. So it's got nothing to do with those basic tax consequences. The number one concern, the number one reason to think about doing this is for liability protection. And this is right there in the name of what an LLC is, limited liability company. And specifically, what it allows a nonprofit to do is to focus certain assets, certain programs, whatever they want to put within the LLC itself, and then shield the nonprofit organization's other assets that are under its name, in its ownership, from liability if something were to happen with the LLC. So if the LLC is running a program or if it has land and something happens there, in theory, if you do it right, if someone's sued, they should not be able to get to the assets of the nonprofit. Now, that's not, nothing's 100% bulletproof in the law, But that is the general idea, and you get very strong liability protection if you do it right.